happy to recommend it to the House. Matt King.
Speaker, pleasure to speak briefly, very briefly on this Crimes Amendment Bill. I'd like to acknowledge Amy Adams, the previous Minister, for her body of work, and I can see that Honourable Andrew Little has taken on 3 aspects of it, so that's great. These 3 are pretty minor but also very archaic pieces of legislation. I'd like to acknowledge the Justice Committee, which I was formerly on for a brief period of time, a very hard-working select committee, and I think I dodged a bullet when I got shifted off that. They worked so hard under Raymond Ho, so credit to them. Look, in terms of the blasphemous libel, I think any law that hasn't had a conviction or prosecution for nearly 100 years warrants a look at, and it also obviously conflicts with our Bill of Rights, so it's a no-brainer in terms of getting rid of that law. The year-and-a-day rule. I think back to my experience in the police, where we had a case where a man was seriously assaulted, quite badly assaulted, but he survived. He received injuries that could have killed him, but he survived, and basically the injuries he suffered were debilitating, and he never recovered. So he was hospital bound for basically until he died. And it took him a year and a bit to die. And the injuries that he got, he was a healthy, fit man prior to that, and the injuries that he got led to his body breaking down, and he eventually died. And the year-and-a-day rule meant that he couldn't be charged. And I just felt that it seemed unjust. So credit to Andrew Little and his team for pushing this through. And in terms of the CTV building and the Pike River and Cave Creek, yep, those cases now, if this law gets passed, people will be held responsible in those situations, and I think that everyone in New Zealand will agree with that. And finally, the spousal immunity. I was in a detective training school, and we covered this particular law, and it always struck me as odd that just because you were married to someone, you couldn't be prosecuted for offences. It just didn't seem right. You could be anything other than a marriage, and you could be prosecuted, but for some reason spouses got immunity, and it just seemed like an oddball law. So I see that during the select committee process we disagreed slightly. National and Labour disagreed on slightly, yes, I guess on the retrospectivity side of things and who gets to face the music. And I see that under the Bill of Rights, there's a commonly one of the main themes of the Bill of Rights is that you can't be charged with an offence if it wasn't an offence prior to. That's a fundamental law, so I could see that we're sticking to that. And finally, the Crimes Act, Section 10A, explains that criminal enactments cannot have a retrospective effect. So if you take those criteria into account, there's a good argument. I guess the other argument is that some people don't end up facing justice if we. So it's quite a dilemma to be facing that and weighing it up. And I'm sure the Select Committee and the House will come to a good decision at the end of the day. We'll be fighting out of our corner, and they'll be fighting out of theirs. So, in saying that, I commend this bill to the House.
Dr. Duncan Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do want to really have a short call in respect of the matter